everybody, and welcome to another Hotspur Huddle episode number 2, I believe, because the first one was last week. As you can see, we do not have Holly with us tonight. Instead, I've gone big. It is transfer season, of course. So I have dipped into the transfer market, and I've got the man, the myth, the legend. That is Nelson. Nelson, how are you, my man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody, and I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, no, it is cracking to have you on, I have to say. And Nelson, just before you give us a bit of an overview of what's going to happen within the show tonight, just to let everybody know that this podcast episode is sponsored by Kickoff Football Academy Milton Keynes, which run all different types of football sessions in and around the Milton Keynes area, Dele Alli country, for those people that don't know where it is. As you can see, we hold, or Kickoff Football Academy, should I say, run lots of different sessions such as one-on-ones, mini kickers, academy sessions, birthday parties, you name it, Kickoff and Kofa do it, basically. Right, Nelson, what's coming up on the show tonight? Talk to me.
Well, today, what we're going to do is we're going to look back at the weekend's fixtures. In particular, we're going to start off with City versus Newcastle. I'm going to look at it. I know you have your coaching eyes, so we're going to look at it from a coaching perspective in terms of the role that City's wide players had, as well as their fullbacks and how they linked as well against Newcastle. And then we're going to have a look at, how they were able to do that, and also in terms of linking it back to obviously Spurs, and obviously the next game that you guys have, which will be against City in the FA Cup. And I guess you're gonna give me, the coaching aspect in terms of how Spurs can deal with City's flexibility tactically as well for that game as well. So that's what we're going to look forward to today. That's what we've got in today's episode, Wes.
Sounds like it's going to be a cracking show, and Holly is going to be fuming that she is missing out on this. But if you are new, as Holly would say, I'm doing this for Holly because she will kill me otherwise. So if you are new, please smash a like on the video and make sure you subscribe to Holly's channel as well. She's very, very close to 3K on YouTube, and I think if anybody deserves to hit that milestone, it is definitely Holly. Right, Nelson, shall we get into it?
Absolutely, let's go. Let's do this.
Right, bear with me 1 second, and I will get my tactics board up. Can we all see that okay?
Lovely.
Can you see it all right, Nels?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Hold on, I'm just going to try and make the screen a little bit bigger if I can. There we go.
Do I see?
That'll do. Right, so Nels, you mentioned there about City versus Newcastle, and the role in particular of the wide players. So we're going to go, for the purpose of this, City in blue, Newcastle in black, and so what I found really, really interesting was the role and the relationship of the wide players here from Man City, and then the relationship that the fullbacks had. So what I noticed in particular was this was sort of the position here that Phil Foden was taking up in that little half space there, and really dragged Dan Burn in particular really into the pitch. What that allowed, especially when somebody like Rodri had the ball, was, so Rodri is the 6 here. It just allowed Rodri a nice little passing avenue out wide to Kyle Walker in particular.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that in particular, so Foden coming on the inside and Walker going down the outside was a big thing. And then on the other side, when the ball was with Kovacic in particular, we've got Doku here, who was hugging it a little bit wider, but it just meant that he was trying to drag Trippier inside, so then Gardevold could get down the outside there. So that's what really, really intrigued me, I think, from the City Newcastle game, was that you've got Foden operating in the pockets, and Doku coming in field as well, and like I say, then having Walker and Gardevold in particular really bombing down the outside.
Wicked. I mean, I love your eyes in. I do also agree in a sense that, yeah, I think they played it to perfection, especially in the first half, and we saw a wonderful goal as well that Bernardo Silva pulled off. Like that was essentially that when we saw, Doku had all that space,
Yeah,
and then he passed it over to Walker, who had acres of space. Let's bear in mind he had acres of space. So basically, what you basically pointed out worked to plan, and obviously Bernardo Silva, a wonderful finish as well. And then you see as well, what do you think are some of the pros and cons of trying to, do something like this? Like City obviously had it and played it to perfection, but from that coaching perspective, what do you think are the pros and cons of playing that?
I think what it allows, especially when you play with inverted wingers, as Foden in particular was, I think Bernardo Silva was just like given this free reign to really kind of roam anywhere. But this side in particular, on the right-hand side, which is where I think it was really, really effective, you've got an inverted winger or inside sort of 10 in Foden, dragging the fullback in. What that then allows is an extra player, say, out wide. And I think if we look back at Guardiola's time at City, and I think, again, that first goal that you highlighted there, it was Bernardo Silva getting into the box there, and it was a lot of crosses, a lot of low crosses into the box. And obviously Bernardo Silva, like you say, for that first goal, really good movement, gets across the front post and across his man. And then, it was an outrageous finish. So what it allows really is just to get an extra player out in a wider area, and, you're creating an overload in the middle part of the pitch, and then the spaces are going to be out wide. So yeah, I think then when you have somebody with the crossing ability of Kyle Walker, who can then deliver different types of crosses in from that right hand side, it allows the likes of, as I say, we saw that for the first goal with Bernardo Silva, to get into the box and get on the end of things. So yeah, I would definitely say that was the big thing that I took out of it.
I mean, when you look at the match stats, I've got the match stats here. Obviously, says that throughout the game, City had 27 shots on goal. So that does show that, when put to perfection in terms of once everyone's following their role, I mean, City did it to perfection. But obviously, when you look at it, if you actually think about it, but at halftime, it ended up being 2-1. They were down 2-1. Despite them actually, playing this and actually getting a goal out of it, they ended up going down 2-1. And then obviously they go on to win the game 3-2. And then we obviously know that was also down to the introduction of one of the all-time greats who's come back from injury, came on around in 69th minute. And Wes, talk to me about KDB, but also his impact when he came on. Does he change what City do, or does he come in and just fill in the gap? Tell me about it. What did you notice through that game as well?
I think it was interesting from De Bruyne's point of view, because, I mean, usually we tend to see City setting up in almost like a 3-2 and then almost like a 5 across the top end of the pitch, pretty much.
Yeah.
So you'll see somebody like Doku hugging the touchline. You'll see a lot of the time Alvarez here, Foden, maybe Bernardo Silva here, depending on which one is inside. The other one is really on the outside of the pitch. So De Bruyne's role on Saturday was very much just get on the ball and make something happen. Again, he took over that Bernardo Silva role in just having that license and freedom to just go where he wanted. So it was a bit of a change, I think, in overall in City's approach in terms of how they would set up the game. But yeah, from a De Bruyne's perspective, it was just right. You find the gaps, you find spaces, and then it's about Rodri and Kovacic trying to find him, getting on the ball, and then I think the goal that he actually scored receives it in a good part of the pitch, good area of the pitch, receives on that half turn, drives forward, and you're almost thinking like, okay, what's he going to do at this point? Could he slide somebody in? Could he whip one? And it was a really good finish. It was a low finish. He just waits. I think it was might have been Fabian Schär that came out to go and win the ball, and he just uses him as a little bit of a wall, but actually puts the ball through his legs. So he shapes up as if he's going to whip it round him, but was really clever and put it low. But I mean, if you have somebody like Kevin De Bruyne that can come off the bench and influence a game, then it's a bit difficult for the opposition, because he's just got that quality to pick a pass, but it's always the right weight of pass at the right time.
Yeah.
With De Bruyne. So yeah, he's a fantastic player, as you mentioned, one of the best midfielders I think we've seen in the Premier League over the years, and he does things that, as a fan watching it, you're going, oh my God, that's unbelievable. But then from a coaching point of view, they're going, well, can you really defend against it? The answer is probably no. Sometimes you just have to accept quality for what it is at that time. So yeah, I think his influence on the game, like I say, it was just, and I think from his point of view, it was just, give me the ball and I will do the rest, and I will go and win us the game, really.
I mean, it's fair to say as well that, last season they ripped it up and his influence was massive. I sometimes hate watching him because for all of our teams that we support, we don't want to see him on the ball. And I can imagine every Newcastle fan seeing, the fourth official put up his, board and then see that, KDB's coming on. It is a frightening sight. And let's just bear in mind as well that their top striker isn't there as well. So they managed to do this as well without their top striker. Before we obviously move on and link it, obviously, to the next game and how Spurs could potentially deal with this, what do you think Haaland's role is as well in this sort of thing? Because Alvarez has come in and stepped in and has actually done a commendable job as well. But with everything that Pep did to set up against Newcastle, you could make the argument that Alvarez wasn't really involved as much. It was down to the three behind him and then passing it out wide, like you mentioned, to the fullback. So what do you think Haaland does in this system? Like, what could he bring alongside, what KDB does with the free roaming role?
You just tell Erling Haaland to stand in the width of the 18 and listen, Kevin, it's one of those where you go, Kevin will get the ball to you as long as you're in the right position. And Kevin will find him every time, like, especially if there's no pressure in and around the ball. But I think Haaland, when he was at Dortmund in particular, it was very much all about him going in behind a lot more.
Yeah.
At City, and I know we've spoken about this previously, Nels, he's very much a penalty box centre forward now. Yes, there are times, when City are going to counter and he's got that space to run in behind, very powerful runner and a strong runner as well as Erling Haaland. But a lot of the time, City are going to dominate the ball. So it's very much a case of, we will get the ball to you, but then once you get the ball, you got to put it away. You have to put the ball in the back of the net. And obviously Haaland, being the clinical number 9 that he is, more often than not, scores, which is really unfortunate, especially, last season, if your name was Harry Kane. But yeah, it's just a case of, look, get in between the two centre halves here, try and play on the shoulder a little bit, and then look to get on, the end of crosses, or, I think, we all see the goal from Oscar Bob with the pass over from De Bruyne, which was an absolute joke, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's just, if De Bruyne has got that, it's a case of he's receiving on the half turn, head up. If Haaland locks eyes with De Bruyne, then it's game over, because De Bruyne is just, all he's got to do is just put it into an area. Haaland will get on the end of it, and he will, more often than not, he will score. So yeah, I think from his role, I don't think it will change too much. I think Alvarez very much has had to adapt his game in terms of, like you mentioned there, going from being involved in a lot of the build-up play and playing 1-2 touch, to then going really high up the pitch and being like, don't get involved, wait, be patient, and then when you do get the ball, make the most of the opportunities that are going to get presented to you. So that's what I would say with regards to Haaland's role now when De Bruyne is back. It's just a case of, look, get into an area and Kevin will find you.
That is those words do sound frightening. I can't lie, bro. They sound proper frightening. And it's the fact that, when you think about the flexibility, or last season, it was more the fact that the wingers were more high and wide. Like, City's wingers were more high and wide. You had Grealish, especially on the left. You had Mahrez as well, that was on the right. They kind of played high and wide. And then fullbacks kind of came in, obviously supported in midfield, which we've seen other teams kind of like follow as well. But the tactical flexibility is crazy. You as a coach, seeing Pep do that, how does that, like, what inspiration do you take before, obviously, again, we link up to the next game that Spurs have? Like, what this guy's mind, like, how does he do it? Like, because from, you might think he might set up like this against Newcastle, but then he'll pull out something else out of the bag, and then Edison might be playing up top. You never know. Like, what do you take from him? Like, what inspires you? And that makes Pep,
I think it's more about principles of play. So that with a Pep Guardiola team, it's to dominate the ball in near enough all circumstances and all parts of the pitch. It's about occupying the 5 lanes across the pitch. Which we can see on this visual here. Pretty much every lane is occupied by City of Blue in this example. So every lane, if you like, is occupied by a blue shirt. So it's about how can I gain a numerical advantage in a certain area of the pitch. But Guardiola is very much one step ahead. Like, we've gone from him being at Barcelona, where I'm not saying he invented playing out from the back, but he took it to a completely different level, and now all of a sudden everybody has to do it. He's gone from having inverted wingers or speedsters, if you like. You look at that Barcelona team. You had David Villa as the sort of, and Pedro and Alexis Sanchez, and even in his early days at City, Sane, Sterling, real pace out wide, which is always hard to defend against. No defender likes playing against pace apart from Wan-Bissaka. So you've got that, but then even at City, he's gone from having the speedsters out wide to then the inverted ones coming in with, you said they're Mahrez, Grealish, those kind of players. Now it's okay, I'm going to have a fullback or somebody stepping into midfield. Well, now all of a sudden we're all thinking, right, well, if Pep's doing it, how do we adapt it to the environment that we work in? But that's the key. It's adapting it to the environment that you work in. So I know for a fact that I can't get my under-10s, for example, my academy under-10s on a Friday night to play in exactly the same way. What we can take, though, is our principles of play. So, yes, we want to play from the back. We want a midfielder to try and, receive the ball from the defenders. Can we look to them build and control possession and play through the pitch? Like I say, when we don't have the ball, okay, yes, we want to go and be aggressive and try and win it high up the pitch. Pep's almost pretty much brought in that 6-second rule of like, right, let's go and win the ball back quickly and high up the pitch, because if we win it high, we're closer to goal. All of that kind of stuff. So, yes, he's reinventing the wheel all the time. But I think from other coaches' perspectives, if that makes sense, it's more his principles of play and then trying to adapt it to the environment and situation that you find yourself in. And I know recently we had a tournament with our under 12s, and yes, I did play with an inverted fullback. I thought, why not? I'd try it. And do you know what? Considering we didn't really do too much on it, it's not a group that I have on a regular basis. It's one of my other coaches that has it, but unfortunately he couldn't make the tournament. So I had to step in. So and it was something we'd never really worked on before, but it worked for us, and it was really interesting to see. And that player had never played as a fullback in his life, but I've said to him, like, right, you do he's an Arsenal fan, unfortunately. But I said to him, right, you do Zinchenko, and he understood the role and played it very, very well. So yeah, when he did step into midfield, right, we got a 3 in there now as opposed to the 2 that I was playing. I was playing in a 9v9 tournament, so I had 2 in midfield, and it was like, right, how can I again create that overload in the central area? Right, well, I might need to get somebody to step into midfield to do that. So, like I say, I think with Pep in, and one of his principles is overloads in certain areas of the pitch. How can he control the game? Well, if he has more players in one area of the pitch than the opposition, then he's got a good chance of doing that. And I think now with the sort of 3-2-5 setup that he's adopted for large parts of this season and last season as well, you're seeing a change and a modern trend very much happening at the minute with Pep.
Appreciate that response, man. Yeah, it is. Again, I just find his mind freaky and scary. So that is something that I appreciate that response. Also, kudos to your young ones as well, taking that risk and listening to that, and obviously seeing the involvement in football. They see on TV. So the fact that, again, you mentioned the lad being an Arsenal fan and just saying like as Zinchenko, and then he just got it and understood. So, I mean, the influence is crazy. Also, did you know, Wes, that City, based on that game, are just the 4th side in Premier League history to have won at least 3 successive away games, despite trailing in each one after Leeds in October 99, Tottenham in December 2013, and United in December 2020.
Great! I didn't even realise we would be in that conversation, especially around that time as well, because it was a difficult time for Spurs in and around 2013. But that is crazy. But they still can't score at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So can City? I've probably gone and jinxed it now ahead of the FA Cup game.
I know. Speaking of it, man, we got to look forward to it. I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, you guys are facing City.
We are.
You spoke about this setup that they did against Newcastle, and you spoke about the good things about how they City played out to kind of penetrate Newcastle. Now, looking at it from a Spurs perspective, what do you think is key to try and stop this? Like, what would you say that Big Ange is thinking of to try? Because I know he's got it up his head. He's thinking about it. Tell us what you think Spurs could do to prevent it or stop it from hurting them for that cup tie.
I'll tell you what, this game is going to be one interesting and intriguing tactical battle, because you've got Ange that wants his fullbacks up here.
Yeah.
Right? And he wants his wingers out there. It will be interesting to see if Pep goes back to having and playing with the 3-2-5 setup, but that's more on the ball. But I think, if City are on the ball, you'll see a lot of recovery runs from Spurs defenders pretty much towards the lines of the 6-yard box, which I find really, really intriguing, because usually you would say to your back four, right, defend the width of your 18-yard box. They can play in front of us and down the sides, but we don't want them to play in between. But listen, I think Spurs have had a go at City this season already. So it's not something that's going to be alien or brand new to Pep and vice versa with Ange. But like I say, I think if Spurs are in possession, that Porro's going to operate in this half space here. Walker will probably be coming back at this point, or in this sort of defensive type of position here. That your doggy's going to be up there, who I thought, by the way, was absolutely outstanding against Man United. Like, outstanding. The big question for Spurs is this midfield 3. Whether it's going to be Højbjerg, Bentancur, and Skip, or whether it then becomes Højbjerg, Bentancur, Maddison, because there's a chance that Madders might be back. So I think Madders, though, will probably start on the bench, but then we haven't really got many other options. So that's probably how I would see Spurs setting up on the ball.
Yeah.
very much like this. And City just being, kind of matching up, I would say, in most areas. But the thing that I found really interesting in the reverse fixture at the Etihad earlier on in the season, again, was off the ball for Spurs. Again, the fullbacks making those recovery runs towards goal. And the width of the posts. And a really interesting battle actually was between Doku and Porro. I thought Pedro Porro, barring one incident where Doku hit the bar, I thought he handled Jeremy Doku very well. And Doku, for me, is probably one of the most exciting wingers in the league at the moment. So, yeah, I think, like I say, it's going to be a really, really intriguing tactical battle. Both teams want to dominate the ball. Both teams are going to be really aggressive in the way they're going to hunt down the ball and not really let the opposition team settle in possession.
Yeah.
So the midfield battle, obviously, in most games is going to be key, but I think even more so in this one because there's no doubt that Rodri will play. He plays near enough every game for City. The number 8 position, if you like, for City is going to be really interesting. Whether De Bruyne starts, if he does, I'm going to cry. Because he's world class, or whether that be Kovacic. The 10 is going to be interesting. I think Bernardo Silva will probably start again, one of Pep's dependables. But I think he'll probably dovetail if it's Foden. Them two seem to rotate really well together. Again, we saw that on Saturday. But yeah, this in battle here between Porro and Doku, if it is Doku that starts or if it's Grealish, I think is going to be really, really intriguing. But from the defensive point of view, again from Spurs, Romero, Van der Ven really going to have to be solid, and I think that's a big plus for Spurs. Yeah. Having our 2 best centre backs back and available, especially for a game of this magnitude, huge.
Yeah.
Because it's not only for what they bring on the ball, defensively as well, really solid, and are very good at backing up the other fullbacks. So there's times where you'll see Van der Ven out here, but he's comfortable to go out into those wider areas. I think, again, we saw it on Sunday where he's pretty much gone through. I think it was Garnacho at one point. Every Spurs fan had their head in their mouth at that point because we were thinking that Mickey's hamstring had gone again. So we can't really afford that. Romero, okay, doesn't really tend to go out into those wider areas, but if he does, it's very much to just mop up a little bit and then look to try and play out. Again, he did that very, very well on Sunday. So yeah, I think the obviously the interesting battle is going to be in midfield, but I'm really looking at in particular these wingers and fullbacks. Udogie in particular, again, as I mentioned, did really, really well on Sunday. Pretty much took Garnacho out for a walk. But what impressed me was recovery runs with Udogie. Just when you feel like as a fullback the winger's done him, and you're like, oh no, here we go. He just somehow comes out of somewhere and will put a really good tackle in and win the ball. I think there was obviously a bit of a dodgy moment in around the penalty box. Penalty could have been given. But yeah, it's more his recovery runs to get back in and then just defend. So I think, yeah, like I say, midfield battle always going to be key, but I think out wide as well going to be really, really key. So if it is Højbjerg in this 6th position, gonna have to probably do a lot of ground sideways just to try and cover or back towards his own goal if one of the centre halves is dragged out wide. But no, really, really looking forward to that. Interesting battle in the wider areas.
I agree, man. It's going to be really interesting. You actually answered my next question. I was going to ask what you thought the key matchups were, and then you mentioned about the wingers and the fullbacks of City against Porro and Udogie, who I think has been the best left back this season, in my opinion. I don't think no one's come close to him. Porro is also a very good honourable mention. Also, I looked at the chat, okay, and we actually have a question. I think Darren, shout out Darren. He asked if you felt that you need Romero to stay a bit wider and Porro and Boomfield, because I know you had an example, you used Porro, in terms of how Big Andrew set up if he does bomb forward? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because usually when your fullback goes wandering, so we say, so Porro caught up a little bit high on the pitch on a turnover. Say, for example, the ball is here. Your first instinct is probably centre back goes there, holding midfielder comes in just to kind of then make sure that we are settled as a back four. But what you will find a lot of the time is, okay, that ball ends up actually going out there. Then it's Romero sort of holding up, the 6 almost backing them up, and then Porro as the number 2 here, just making that recovery run back. So good work, I would say, from, in particular, Romero. Basuma is more, right, I'm going to go and get it. Højbjerg is very much, I'm going to slow you down. And I think that's the biggest difference between the two in that role. But it's very much, okay, slow down. I mean, if Cootie's not going to smash him and put him in row Z, then, fair play to the winger. the winger. So, yeah, I think it's very much just a case of slowing them down to get the fullback back into the position to then deal with the 1v1. And actually, a lot of the time, you will find the winger ends up going down the line. Porro will either block the cross that comes in towards the box, or it's just a case of shepherding him down the line. And I think that is where Porro's game in particular has really, really improved this season. I think defensively in 1v1 situations, he's been fantastic because I've not seen too many players roast him. I think there was maybe one incident where he let Doku come inside in the reverse fixture and Doku hit the bar. And my head was definitely in, my heart was kind of, it sank at that point. So, I definitely think with regards to Darren's question, it's not so much a case of, Romero staying a little bit. It's just, okay, if that happens, we then move across or, hold up the winger, the left winger in particular, in possession, and then let Porro get back in. And similarly for the other side with your doggy, like I say, his recovery runs are wicked. The speed on him as well is frightening. So yeah, and Nels, you did get a big thumbs up as well from Darren. So well done you. Well done
nice,
you.
Nice.
Well done.
Appreciate you, Darren. Thank you. No, I mean, I think the fact that you mentioned that Porro, especially Porro's game, I've been really impressed with Porro this season. It seems like you guys got 2 Wan-Bissakas now, which actually makes it annoying for any winger to come up against your fullbacks. And the fact that, 2 trips in Manchester, both been draws, 3-3 and 2-2. I think you you would be really impressed with the fact that, especially the game against United, with about the amount of key players you had missing. Also against City as well, you also had a number of players as well missing as well. What do you think then? I know it's quite early to give predictions. I know it's quite early, but like, I've got to ask you, man, what do you think the score's going to be? What do you hope for in a game? What do you think the score will end up being?
I mean, just to go off your point, obviously, like you say, 2 trips to Manchester. The first one, we didn't have a centre half, and Emerson Royale pocketed Erling Haaland, and I'm not even joking. I was at the game as well, and I'm watching Emerson Royale, and I'm going, "Oh my word, what has happened to you?" Because this is not the Emerson Royale that us Spurs fans have become accustomed to over the last 18 months now, or 2 years, 2.5 years. I think he's been there now. But yeah, it's not the Emerson Royale that we're used to. But he was absolutely brilliant. Like I say, pocketed Erling Haaland, and even Ben Davies as well. Credit the Welsh Maldini. Credit where it is due, because he was fantastic that evening as well. So yeah, to come out of City with a point, fantastic result. And yeah, I think we both, like me and my dad, both looked at the team sheet and we were like,
yeah,
right, if it's 3-0, we're happy. So the fact we got a draw was good. I think the general feeling amongst the Spurs fans going into the United game was we were fairly confident, given where the state of the 2 teams at the moment. I think we were fairly confident. Then again, you see the team sheets come in. And then you look into the bench and you go in, what's going on here? Like, I don't even think we filled the bench. We had no Kulusevski, who's been a big player for us. Again, could play in that 10 position for Spurs against City as well. Handles the ball really well under pressure, especially in big games. So there was that. There was no. Obviously, no Son away at the Asia Cup, no Basuma, no Papsar, both away at AFCON. So we didn't really have the attacking options. Obviously, still no Maddison as well, but again, didn't really have the attacking options to go and potentially change the game. But I think the way that we played at Old Trafford was brilliant. I think the way we played at City as well was brilliant, and we've gone there, to 2 top 6 rivals and gone, we're Tottenham Hotspur. This is how we're going to play, and this is how we will do it. And I think Ange's always said that, especially after the Chelsea game, it was, even if we got 5 men on the pitch, we're still going to have a go. But I think in terms of a prediction, wow, I don't think I could call it because, a City going to be the usual City that turn up against Tottenham, or are they going to be the all-conquering sort of Manchester City? It feels like when they come and play Spurs, they get stage fright.
Yeah.
For some unknown and some massively bizarre reason. Like, I can't fathom the fact that, Man City have won the treble last year and everything else. And, the brand of football that they play, the players that they've got that they can call upon, especially from the bench. And then you throw the stat in, they've not scored a goal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in 5 visits. You're there going, what on earth is that all about? So yeah, look, obviously I'm hoping that Spurs can get a win, which means we're through to the next round. And it's one of them like, okay, we've beaten City. Who else are we gonna come up against? That will really test us and challenge us in the same way. Probably no one. Listen, there's still some big teams in there. You got Liverpool that are still in. United can be tricky to play against. Chelsea will always be a humdinger of a game. But it's one of them where if you can get past City, that's another big rival for the competition gone. Arsenal have been knocked out already. So yeah, I think if we were to pick up a result against City and go through to the next round, then look, I'm not saying we're going to win the FA Cup, but it would be bloody nice at the end of the day. So yeah, I think, like I said, I honestly can't call it now. So I'd love to be able to say that it's good. I could love to be able to give you a score prediction, but I didn't predict a 3-3 at the Etihad earlier on in the season. So yeah. I got no open and Bob Hope here of trying to predict what's going to happen a week on Friday.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be a spectacular game. I know you told me as well, like being there at the United game was a great game, but obviously for the neutral as well, it was a great game to watch. So who knows? I do fancy for you guys to win. I did see a current shout out Darren again. He did mention as well that Emerson was still looking for Haaland in his pocket. So I do think that could potentially happen again. Maybe Big Ange might just saw Emerson last game, I might stick him back in there. But yeah, no, I mean, that is pretty much it. I mean, we've covered all the bases based on, City, Newcastle, and obviously looking forward to Spurs' next game against Manchester City. To kind of conclude, because I've asked you a lot of questions today, Wes. We've spoken about KDB. I want to come back to him. And after his performance, I know a lot of people were talking about where he ranks in terms of all-time top Premier League players of all time. Do you know what I mean? However, I want to, focus on just the midfield position because that's where he plays.
Yeah.
And if I had to ask you right now, because somebody asked me this the other day, I have my list in order from 5 to 1, your top 5 central midfielders, which include KDB. It could be central defensive mid, could be obviously a centre mid, obviously a central attacking mid, just the central kind of positions. KDB is obviously in that top 5, but where does he fall? Give me your list. I put you on the spot here. Give me a list.
Yeah, you have. I would go top 5 for me. I've got to have Gerrard and Lampard in there.
Okay.
I think, they are pretty much, I think they're probably a bit of a throwback now. I mean, Lampard, the highest goal scorer in Chelsea's history, and to score that amount of goals from midfield, frightening. Gerrard could do everything. You want somebody to control a game. Gerrard could do it. You want somebody to be box to box at that time, because obviously it was a lot 4-4-2 those days. So be box to box. Yeah, Gerrard can do it. You want somebody to create something for you. Gerrard could do it. His relationship with Torres in particular, saw to that. So I'd have Gerrard, Lampard in there. I think De Bruyne has got to be in there. Scholes, because I mean, Scholes is a reference point for a generation of legendary midfielders. But then, I mean, could have Yaya Toure in there. Could throw him into the equation. You could throw. For me, I think David Silva's got to be in there as well.
I was hoping.
El Maggio. Like this, I've never seen somebody receive the ball in the box of 4 players before, and he done it at White Hart Lane numerous times, and I'm there like, how on earth's he done that? Like, and how on earth has he spotted past the pictures that he saw nobody else saw on the pitch? And he was just a player that I loved watching play. Like, everything about him meant that he should have failed in the Premier League in terms of small in height, slight in stature, very one-footed, couldn't really run. And he just went, okay, but just give me the ball and I'll do the rest. And yeah, what a player. But yeah, I think KDB is definitely in there. But I'd definitely have Gerrard, Lampard, probably KDB. Then I'd probably look at David Silva and then Paul Scholes.
Oh my gosh, you know what's so funny? That is my 5 as well. We guys, we have not planned this.
Yeah, we didn't. I didn't know that question was coming. I genuinely did not know that question was coming.
We have not planned this, but that was my top 5. I personally put KDB number 1.
Okay.
I put Gerrard second because for me, a complete midfielder. But those 5 that you mentioned, I also put them in there because, again, David Silva for me, I think a lot of people he's very much underappreciated. I think when he retired, a lot of people realized, oh wow, we've literally got one of the best ever leaving the Prem. Like, we were blessed to see this magician play. But no, very good top 5. No judgment there. Guys, what is your top 5 as well? Let us know what your top 5 is as well. Best central midfielders of all time. But Wes, I think that kind of concludes our show.
I think it does now. So I have to say, it was brilliant to have you on. You've done an amazing job
I appreciate
as well. So big well done to you. Before we wrap up though, Nels, where can everybody find you doing your thing?
You guys can find me only on Instagram. I'm an Instagram guy. You can find me at ntumba25. So find me on Instagram, follow me at ntumba25. Again, it's been great being on the show. So onwards and upwards.
Absolutely. And before we go, just a reminder that this podcast is sponsored by Kickoff Football Academy Milton Keynes. I'm not going to go full on and say your number 1 spot for football in the Milton Keynes area, but it's something I'd love to get to one day. But Kickoff Football Academy hosts loads and loads of different football sessions for various players of different abilities. Boys and girls welcome. One-on-one sessions, your mini kickers. We've got our own academy. We pretty much do the lot when it comes to football. So get in touch if you are in the Milton Keynes area and get your child booked in with some sessions. We would love to help them. And that is pretty much it, apart from my outro. I know some people really look forward to this every week. So you should know by now, Twitter is at Wezo10, the unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account. I believe as well, Nelson, it was the anniversary of him leaving Tottenham Hotspur Football Club today in 2019. So yeah, 2019 was the day I shed real adult tears because the greatest to do it in a Spurs shirt left, and then we lost the Champions League final 6 months later, but we won't go into that. I'm on Instagram as well as Nels, so at Wezo32, usually at a Spurs game somewhere. So yeah, like I say, I was at Old Trafford on Sunday. I managed to bump into a couple of people as well, which was really, really nice. So yeah, like I say, I'm usually at a Spurs game, although saying that, I'm not at the next couple because scheduling from TV companies has done me over. And then Kickoff Football Academy or at Kofa MK across your socials. So like I said earlier, get in touch if you are in the Milton Keynes area, and get your child signed up to a session. We would love to help them. But Nels, until then, we will see you soon, and come on, you Spurs.